Today I'm taking a look at the Luckfox PicoKVM. So KVMs are a class of device that let you access remotely the keyboard, video, and mouse of a target computer. So this guy plugs into the HDMI output into the USB port on a physical computer somewhere and lets me act like I'm sitting in front of it, seeing the screen and typing commands on the keyboard and mouse. So this gives you very hard level remote access to a remote system. So today I'm taking a look at the Luckfox PicoKVM. So KVMs are a class of device that lets you access the keyboard, video, and mouse of a target computer. So this plugs into HDMI and to USB on a real physical computer somewhere. It captures the video, streams it over the network, the internet, from this guy to my laptop. And from my computer somewhere, my laptop, I can remotely access the physical target system as if I was sitting in front of it. I can see the screen, I can type commands on the keyboard, click things with the mouse. So this gives you a pretty low-level remote access capability no matter what the operating system is or even in the BIOS of the remote system. So now I've taken a look at pretty much every competitor in this space now, at least this stuff priced under 200 bucks. So take a look at my playlist up here if you want to see all of my KVM reviews. But this guy's got some harsh competition he's coming up against. So if you guys want to see how the Luckfox PicoKVM compares to some of the other market leaders, then come along on this adventure. Now, as with all the other KVMs I reviewed, Luckfox sent me this unit for review. They sent me just the stuff you get in the kit, which is just the unit and one cable. They did not pay me to make this review, so no money changed hands, and they won't see the review until you do. So let's get on with it. So this is what came in the box. There's a USB Type-C splitter. If you look really closely on these, you can see one says power, one says data. So this is for back powering the device if your host doesn't provide enough power. The device itself is quite tiny in the hand, has a peel that I'll go ahead and peel off now. On the connector side, we've got HDMI in, a pin labeled pin out. They did not send a breakout for that and it's not included in the kit. And the single USB port that connects to our USB splitter. We also have Ethernet. On the side, we have space for micro SD card, reset, and boot buttons. These make a nice tactile feel. Nothing else around the other sides. And on the bottom, we just have screw holes. So let's plug it in and see how it looks. So my victim PC for this video is going to be a GMKTech K10. It's a mini PC, Intel Core i9. Doesn't really matter for this video except for the fact that it's a PC. It runs Windows, runs Linux, and we're going to test it. Now this guy didn't come with any cables, so I'm going to have to dig some out. Okay, featuring some random HDMI and USB cables I found. So HDMI and USB. And I'm going to try it without the splitter because I don't have a USB brick handy, so let's see how that goes. I'm also going to need Ethernet, which goes off to my router. So on the PC side, I've got HDMI. I don't have a Type-C. Guess they're plugging into a port on the front then. There we go. So Luckfox is now powering up. See if it gets, oh, it's upside down. Okay, so it's powered up. It says HDMI and USB. And doesn't appear to be a touchscreen. Because it's not, oh, nope. I can swipe, okay. So touching does nothing. Gotta swipe. We can see CPU and RAM usage of the Luckfox itself. That does not seem very helpful at all to me. And we got the IP address and MAC address. No V6 address, but I guess we'll connect and see if it has V6. Looks like it's also supporting Tailscale and 0-tier, but I can't configure it here. And it's running app version 0.01, hostname PicoKVM. Let's see if it does MDNS. Oh, this looks very suspiciously similar to a JetKVM, but it says Luckfox. Okay. Well, let's check for updates. Wow, great. Well, it does have an IPv6 address, so that's good. And it has a v4 address as we expected. I guess I should probably just start testing the video. So where's the power button on this guy? So we're going to boot this thing up and see how it looks. I think this thing has Windows still on it, so... Yep, there we go, GMK Tech. Well, this looks pretty good. So this is sort of the bare minimum that we can expect a KVM to do. It reads the HDMI video from the target system. The keyboard and mouse emulation appears to work. That's like the bare minimum to even call it a KVM. So from here, the feature set just goes up. So we have things like copy and paste. We have additional features that may make the Luckfox better than its competitors. So take a look at some of those. So one of those, the ability to copy and paste text. So if I come here and I say paste text, I can paste text in. It says it's not going to paste a comma for some reason. There we go. So it looks like I'm getting some text errors here. I don't know if you can see the red. So it's typing out the whole script of the movie. Can I stop it now? No, it's just going to keep going. Yeah, see that some of these words are not coming in correctly, but I also can't stop it. Okay, refreshing it stopped. This was all correct in my source material, but it sort of messed up the typing there. So maybe pasting the whole script of the B-movie is not the best idea, but sometimes you're working, maybe an AI tells you to paste a script or something, you copy and paste it, and it's a little bit longer than you thought it was. So I guess the only way to stop it is to refresh the page in the browser, and that gets it to stop, which is a choice, I guess. I'm not going to say it's good or bad. Different KVMs have different solutions to this problem. Most of them, they'll get the text right. So I'm going to let it paste the entire script, then we're going to diff it and see where the text errors are.
One eternity later.
Okay, so actually pasting that text took forever. So it's the next day now. Let's see what the text file looks like. So here is the start of the text file. And you can see already on the first page we missed a space here. So this is supposed to be yellow space black. And so scrolling down a bit more, I think another, yeah, so this one's supposed to have a space here, and that's supposed to be is, so we lost an I. And so there are small text errors. So if you're just trying to paste in like a password or something simple, it'll probably be okay, but check to make sure your text is right when you paste it with this method. Now, I don't exactly want to fault the Luckfox for this. It's trying to type as fast as possible. So essentially it has to emulate, you press the key, you waited, you released the key like a real typist. So the operating system can parse that into text on the screen. There isn't exactly like a keyboard protocol for bypassing that and just sending strings. So it has to actually emulate pressing and releasing all the keys. They obviously want to do that as fast as possible so you don't have to wait forever for your text to be pasted. But the speed at which they type is a balance between it being efficient for you and occasionally having small errors. So with that done, I like to move into the BIOS now, and for that I need some virtual media. So here I could add media. I have the option for storage or micro SD, and I'm going to use the internal storage for now. And I already uploaded an Alpine image. It's not the fastest upload, it's about 10 megabytes per second, but that's not terrible. So let's go ahead and mount that as CD-DVD disk. Let's say CD-DVD. So with that mounted, let's go ahead and reboot the system and get it into BIOS. This is one place where some mini PCs will pull power from USB when they're not on. I found this primarily happens with mini PCs. So I'm going to hit escape here while it boots up. But large like desktop PCs and servers I found do not remove their USB power when they're powered off. Mini PCs often do. So that's why we have the included USB power splitter. If your system does pull power, or does not supply power when it's off or when it reboots, you'll need to use this with an external USB brick. This system here did not turn off USB power when I rebooted it. So I plug it in, USB power comes up, even with the system off, so the Luckfox is just fine in this configuration with this PC. So you might not need an external power brick, but it's available as an option. Obviously they didn't include the power brick, they just included the splitter. Now some people really want PoE power for something like this, and I can understand that if your systems you're powering would have needed the power splitter. But in my experience, and I test mostly mini PCs, many of the mini PCs don't need the power splitter, in none of the desktop systems I've tried. So anything based on like ATX, MATX, all of those systems I've tried have not needed the power splitter. So it's just some of these mini PCs that probably aren't doing things entirely correctly that need the power splitter for external power. So I don't personally see a use for PoE, given that most systems are not going to need the power splitter and can just take power from the victim, but that's my opinion. So here we got into the BIOS, and we're going to boot from KVM Virtual Media, go. So you may have noticed, this time I booted up Alpine Linux instead of my usual Ubuntu. Now I like to test Ubuntu because first of all, they're a very mainstream Linux distribution, and second of all, their ISO is really big. So some of the big name desktop distributions like Ubuntu and Fedora have pretty big installers, even bigger than Windows sometimes. And on the Luckfox KVM, Ubuntu doesn't fit. So it didn't even give me an error. It just kind of hung. So if I look here at the storage, you can see it says 4.83 gig used, 16 meg free, and then here's the incomplete ISO. So if I try to continue it, it's just going to get stuck and not load anymore. So no error detection for when the ISO is too big to fit on the storage, and the internal storage on this thing is really small. Now they have a micro SD slot that can help alleviate that, but I can't fit one basic Linux ISO on the internal storage of a common distribution. I believe this also doesn't have enough space for a single Windows ISO. So essentially, unless you're using Alpine or a stripped down distribution, the internal storage is going to be completely useless to you. You're going to have to add an SD card to store your favorite distros. So the other thing I'd like to talk about is how the software came from JetKVM. So I don't think it actually mentions it anywhere, so I'm on version 0.0.1. And it refuses to update, by the way, so I haven't updated it, so it gets stuck. But it doesn't mention JetKVM anywhere here. But on their GitHub, we can clearly see it was forked from JetKVM. And in fact, it actually still says JetKVM in the About, and links to JetKVM's website. And, well, I guess they changed the README page here. And this is GPL licensed, so they are free to do this. And they are publishing their changes. But if we look at the commits they've done here, if I click on the commit history, so like what is one of these? So they have support for Luckfox KVM, that's one commit. They've done 4 commits here, and instead of doing nice feature commits, like nice software developers, they have one gigantic commit like this. So this, yeah, large commits have some hidden content. And basically they're just changing like a whole bunch of stuff at once. So it's like some guy had all the code in his computer and he just committed it for release and didn't use Git to store his changes or keep track of what he was doing. Another thing I find interesting is the extension here. So JetKVM supports extensions, and they have these two, I/O control and serial console. So if I load this, I could start a serial console here. I'm not actually sure if it'll work, but if I come back here, we'll quit that. And I could do the same for I/O control. I can turn I/O1 on and off. But I don't think Luckfox actually supports either of these. So I go back here. Here's the expansion pin definition. And so it shows UART 0. So maybe the serial console would give us UART 0 and 1. I'm not sure. There's an I2C port, and there's UART 2 debug and 3.3 volt and ground. And this is just sort of casually tucked away in the introduction. They don't actually sell a cable to use this connector. So for all of you asking about powering on the system remotely here, I mean, in theory, this pinout could be wired up to do that, but Luckfox doesn't sell any accessories to do that. And you shouldn't connect a 3.3 volt I/O straight to an ATX motherboard. You need some isolation in between there. So effectively, to me, the pinout is a useless connector. They just have docs that list what the pins do, which I guess is helpful for some people, but there's no software support and there's no cables included, and there's no cables you can even buy as an accessory. So effectively, the pinout is useless. So essentially all of the other feature support here is entirely inherited from JetKVM. So they do support Tailscale and Zero Tier, and I'm actually not connected to Tailscale, so we're going to access here. Tailscale is enabled, but it's not connected to a network. And Zero Tier also, they support that as well. Not that I like either one of them, but some people do. And essentially all of this UI, I don't think Luckfox has really changed anything here. So this is what JetKVM has now. JetKVM software is very good, and they've just kind of taken that. So given that Luckfox software is actually just JetKVM software, I don't think I have to look at it in that much more detail. Go ahead and check out my JetKVM video. I've really liked the JetKVM, and they've made a lot of firmware improvements since my video over a year ago now. So go ahead and check that out. But I'm going to tear this thing down, and we're going to see what the hardware's like, because I have a JetKVM. I know what that hardware's like, so let's see what's in here. Guess we'll go ahead and unplug it. So, not that hard to get into. I got 4 screws here. By the way, everyone always asks, I use an iFixit toolkit. I'm big fans of iFixit's support of right to repair, so that's why I like their stuff. So we probably need like number 0. Let's go ahead and get these guys out. Okay, so we got a Luckfox logo in here. USB, so how do I pop the rest of this stuff out? Do I push it from this side? No, that looks like it'll damage the screen. How do I get in there and... So I've got a tiny flathead. Let's see if we can pry it out. Maybe via the SD card slot. No, that looks like it's going to break it. Do I have to use like a nut driver to open these little guys here? Let's see. Maybe this size. That feels pretty good. Let's try that. Okay. Standoffs are coming out. Oh yeah, now we're falling out. Get out of there. Okay, so we got 2 boards here connected by a ribbon cable. It looks like one of these guys here has a rock chip RV1106G3, which, by the way, is the exact same processor used in the JetKVM. We got the GPIO connector that's useless, the USB connector, Ethernet. On the other board, we've got the display and the HDMI input. And let's see if I can get a good view of that HDMI chip. It is not wanting to show up nicely on camera. See if you guys can read that. So that's the HDMI chip. This is probably handling CSI, or maybe it's just a proprietary, well, there's definitely CSI going across it. It's probably a proprietary pinout because they've also got the screen on there. So yeah, that's what we got inside. The back side here, nothing entirely useful, but I'll go ahead and put this little guy back together. So I guess you've seen it here first. The Luckfox PicoKVM, which I'm going to come out and say it, it's a JetKVM clone. So if that's okay with you, then it's a JetKVM clone in pretty much every sense of the word. They did make their own touchscreen UI, probably because JetKVM open sourced that one later than the main app. Or maybe just because they wanted their own UI, but that's the difference. I can't really tell how much they've changed in the software because they don't document their commits. They just say, update app version to 0.2, update app version to 0.3. They've changed 160 files with 13,239 additions and 3,806 deletions, according to GitHub, and they haven't really documented any of that. So we don't know what's different, but it looks like JetKVM. Okay, so checking pricing. Currently, the JetKVM is selling for $89.99. That's an increase from the $69.99 it was back during the Kickstarter, but that's the current price as of when I'm recording this video. The Luckfox, the whole unit, plus the USB cable, nothing else, is selling for $61.99. And the basic version, which is just the 2 boards, no enclosure, no touchscreen, no splitter, is $38.99. So this is cheaper. The base unit puts it on par with SIP Nano KVM. The full version's a bit more expensive than that, but not quite as expensive as the JetKVM. So it is cheaper, at least, than the JetKVM for a clone. And that's pretty much all I got to say. So this thing works. I would say it works as advertised. The features aren't spectacular. It doesn't have ATX control. It doesn't have a lot of those other accessories that many of the other KVMs offer. They have the, quote, pin out that is completely useless. But as for being a basic KVM, it'll totally work. And they're based on JetKVM software, which is fantastic software. Props to the JetKVM team for writing it. So that's what I got to say about the Luckfox. Link down in the description below. Also, I found that someone's selling them on Amazon for like a 5 times markup, so don't buy it from Amazon. It's not listed there officially, so people will, I guess, is it really a scam if they're reselling it on Amazon for, it's kind of like a scam. So Luckfox sells it themselves on their own website. You can check there for the price. JetKVM has a website as well. They refer you to 2 of their partners. I'll have a link in the description for the JetKVM also. Also, I got a Discord server. Link down below for that if you want to chat with me. I've got a Ko-fi if you want to buy into the fine shirts you've seen in this video, such as the Cloud Free is the New Luxury, or maybe my Home Lab Personal Data Center shirt. Those are both down below at my Ko-fi as well. I'm on Mastodon. You can follow me there, and I guess I'll see you guys on the next adventure.